I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Senator Lisa Murkowski questioned EPA Administrator Michael Regan about Alaska wetlands on Wednesday. During a Senate Appropriations Committee hearing, the Alaska Republican asked Regan about compensatory mitigation and the need for it in Alaska specifically. Take a listen to more.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator, I might commend to you and your team to do a check-in with the school district in Tok, Alaska. They have been engaged in a pilot of an EV school bus up there. How these buses, or how this bus operates in extreme cold weather environments. I'm not going to comment on the success or lack of success, but just to recognize that there are some considerations, and I think we can learn something from what they're doing up there. I want to direct my first questions to you regarding waters of the United States. And as I mentioned in my opening, there is perhaps different impact to a state like Alaska, where a significant portion of our state is considered to be wetlands. So it kind of puts us in a different place than most other states, and it impacts economic development, particularly in our rural communities that are trying to do very small, perhaps very routine projects and get stopped after this. So this was, again, a good roundtable that the Assistant Administrator Fox was able to engage in. And so I'd like you to share with me this morning how you plan to integrate the feedback that was heard at that roundtable from Alaska constituencies, and more specifically to the issue of compensatory mitigation. One of the challenges that we have with compensatory mitigation in the state is that we don't have areas that are in need of mitigation. For us, we may need some more creative solutions, allowing the agency to explore whether it's projects like water infrastructure projects that are desperately needed in rural Alaska and Alaska Native villages that will improve water quality, just improve life there. So what are you planning to do with the feedback that you've received, and are you considering these beneficial proposals in lieu of what would be determined more typical compensatory mitigation?
Well, thank you for that question. I can tell you that we were very thoughtful in these regional roundtables, and we chose 10 regions that we believe would be more reflective of the diversity across the country. Assistant Administrator Fox came back with a lot of great intelligence. We are definitely not just checking boxes or going through the motions. These roundtables are very instructive for us and will inform how we approach waters of the U.S. As a former state regulator, I know the difficulties of ambiguity. I also understand the frustrations of an overly complex and administratively burdensome rule that doesn't necessarily reflect the needs of North Carolina or Alaska, but maybe advantages a state like Florida. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to strike a balance where we meet our legal obligations under the Clean Water Act as a federal agency and a federal government, but also provide the flexibility and the autonomy that we know states need to handle some of the conditions that are on the ground. And so that is the goal we're trying to achieve. I believe that when you look at the current proposed rule, it goes back to 2015, which was, in my opinion, a simpler rule prior to some of the changes that were enacted. It will codify some of the decisions that the Supreme Court has made, but it will retain a lot of the exemptions and the exclusions that we know our farmers and ranchers in states like Alaska will need. And then we're going to add into that these comments that we're getting from these regional roundtables. So we're trying to strike a balance where we get a legally sound, durable rule that gives states the flexibility to do some of the more innovative things that I think Assistant Administrator Fox heard during the regional roundtable, especially in the compensatory mitigation and other categories as well.
Well, I'm glad to hear you use the word flexibility. Again, this is not an effort to get around a rule. This is just a reality that we don't have a system that accommodates what compensatory mitigation might look like in other parts of the country. And yet you have extreme need when it comes to certain aspects of water quality, water safety. And so just your commitment to keep working on this to ensure that the state's input is considered is appreciated. Absolutely. Let me switch to the contaminated lands. And again, you've heard me express my concerns and how critical an issue this is and how unacceptable it really is that so little progress has been made to date by the federal government. We have to do better on this. We must do better on this. And again, I want to make sure I'm not blaming your agency. I'm not blaming the EPA. But I do think that EPA is uniquely positioned to help us find a real, and to use your word, a durable solution to this problem that has plagued these communities in Alaska for so long. So thank you for your willingness to engage on this. I appreciate what you've done so far. But we're here in the committee now, we're talking about providing resources and to help drive new initiatives within the agency. So I would ask for your commitment today to have our two staffs sit down together by the end of this month and begin to explore some creative solutions to this problem.
You absolutely have my commitment there, and I think your staff will find that the Acting Assistant Administrator Carlton Waterhouse, who grew up and spent some time in Alaska, who is leading our Superfund and Brownfield efforts, has some really innovative ideas about how we can approach this problem, and he's been doing a great job conversing with DOI, DOD, DOE, NOAA. So we've got some ideas. We need the resources. We need to start putting shoulder to this wheel. And you have my commitment. You also have Carlton's commitment to focus on the unique issues that are facing the Alaska Natives.
Well, I appreciate that. And you're right. We need to resource it. We just can't talk about it. We've been talking about it for too long, and the result has been the same, which is nothing. So I appreciate this willingness to work together, and I look forward to what we're going to do to change this dynamic. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely.